A good Monday morning to you on your July 11th. This is your 10 a.m. tropical update. I'm meteorologist Peyton Malone. We are watching something in the Gulf this morning. It's nothing terribly organized, but it is a trough of low pressure, just meaning we've seen a persistent area of showers and thunderstorms that has developed over the Gulf, and it does have a chance to develop here. You can see there on your screen, the chances aren't very high. They're only at about a 30% chance this morning. Yesterday they were at 20%. And we'll see if that trend continues to go up. But for now, the big story with this is going to be a rainmaker. Regardless of if it becomes a depression or even a storm, it's still going to be a big rainmaker. So overview of what's going on with it right now. We've got some showers and storms off the coast of Louisiana here. We've got showers and storms off the panhandle of Florida. This is where the most prominent surface trough is. And what we're going to be watching is this zone. And this entire area from the coast of Louisiana to the coast of Florida for low pressure trying to organize into maybe depression. The big question right now is, where does it try to organize? It could really happen anywhere in here, and this could likely happen by the middle and end of the work week. So over the next couple of days, it's going to be a slow process, more than likely to come together. Of course, the Gulf waters are boiling hot. They're way hotter than they normally would be this time of year. It's where you see this kind of pink color. That's 90-degree Gulf temperature. So we've got the hot water. There's no issue there. There is a little bit of wind shear. There is also some dry air in the northern parts of the Gulf and on the western side of the Gulf. So we'll see what role that plays. But that could kind of keep this from ramping up too quickly. Of course, we will see. So we are really just kind of in that wait and see pattern. We're seeing how things evolve over the next 48 hours or so with all these showers and storms over the warm Gulf waters. We will see if any of those showers and storms try to become a dominant feature and wrap up into a low pressure. There's also another feature over the Gulf of Mexico. This is an upper level low, and you can see it spinning. I drew it on there for you. You can see kind of a trough and a low spinning right in here. So that could help enhance some of these showers and storms as well. And also that's a little bit of wind shear in there too. So there's a lot going on right now. There's a lot of uncertainty with this forecast because nothing has really formed. We don't have a specific area that models are latching onto and developing. And at this point, once again, we're just in a wait and see. Now, with this being a slow moving system, this is going to be a big rainmaker for someone. And this part of the forecast, very uncertain. There's not a lot of confidence in this part of the forecast because, well, we're not exactly sure if a low pressure does develop. The dominant one, where is it going to go? How much is it going to organize? But here's what we think right now. It does look like that over the Gulf is where the big chunk of the rain is going to be through this week. We're talking 10 plus inches, seems like a good bet. As you get further inland, rainfall totals start to drop off. And I think a good average is 2 to 4 inches over southeast Louisiana and across a big part of the Gulf Coast, 2 to 4 inches. But there will be pockets, especially under those downpours, where you could pick up 2 to 4 inches in an hour. So those will be your higher totals of maybe 4 to 8 inches. So main concern with all this is certainly going to be the flooding. Once again, I was just talking about the uncertainty with the forecast. We have two very different solutions for the southeast Louisiana area and the Louisiana coastline over the next 5 to 7 days. This just shows you that. I'm showing you our GFS and Euro model. These are our two big global models. The European model is the one in the green. The GFS model is the one in the red. They show generally the same thing by tomorrow and Wednesday. Broad area of low pressure trying to come together somewhere off the mouth of the river, somewhere south of Mobile, somewhere south of the Mississippi coast and here. And as we go out in time, watch what happens. They really diverge, meaning they spit out two vastly different scenarios here. And when you're looking at this, you can see the European model, the one in the green, is a further east solution, a bit more unorganized at this point. Still some low pressure, but further to the east of New Orleans, whereas the GFS produces the low pressure and moves it up into Louisiana. Notice New Orleans on the west side. If you know anything about tropical systems, there's a difference between the east and the west side here on the Gulf Coast. The east side usually is where all the rainfall is. The west side is usually the drier side. So in this case, the European model has lower rain totals over Louisiana, whereas the GFS puts some pretty big rain totals over Louisiana. So this is one of those uncertainties in the forecast. And keep in mind, either one of these scenarios is possible at this point. With such an unorganized, messy system, both models are trying to guess what exactly is going to happen. And as I mentioned, they do produce vastly different scenarios. This is the GFS model, the one where the low pressure tracks more into Louisiana. Notice some of these rainfall totals going over the next 7 days, it spits out some pretty big rainfall totals. You can see there in the white, that's models depicting 15 plus inches of rainfall. So that's the solution that develops a low and moves it into Louisiana. The the European model is the solution that keeps a low pressure, still produces rain in Louisiana, but maybe not as significant as what the what the GFS is showing. So you can see there are lots of yellows and oranges and reds. That's 5 to 7 inches. Over Louisiana, the Mississippi coast. And then once you get into the Gulf regions, that's where the coastal areas and into the Gulf, that's where you start to run into some 11, 12 inch totals. So both models are spitting out a foot perhaps the closer you get to the Gulf of Mexico. And remember, these are fine details that we cannot guarantee. This is a model run. This is just a scenario that might happen. So we do need to keep an eye on this. It does look like today and tomorrow, Monday and Tuesday, the flooding threat is going to be very isolated in nature. We just have some hit or miss storms around. But by Wednesday, that's when we could start to deal with that flooding risk really starting to ramp up. And then it could potentially, depending on the track and how this thing evolves, continue into Thursday, maybe even into the end of the work week. This is going to be a slow mover, meaning it's not going to be moving fast thanks to the steering currents. Look at the steering pattern here. Anytime you've got a tropical system wedged in between two ridges of high pressure, it's not going to be moving that fast. So this thing is just going to meander near the coast, maybe inland. And that's why we're kind of preaching that regardless if this becomes a depression or, on the unlikely side right now, it looks like a storm, it's going to be a big rainmaker. So that's why we want you to follow this closely. If it does organize enough, it is possible that this thing sits over the Gulf waters. The Gulf waters are plenty warm. There's not a ton of wind shear. There's also some dry air. It is possible you get a storm out of this. And if we did, the next name is Danielle. So we're going to be following this closely. There's a lot of uncertainty in this forecast right now. That just means we don't have a lot of confidence because there's a lot of different scenarios that could play out. And it's one of those things where if you're on the west side, it's got a different, scenario than what you would get if you were on the east side, meaning rainfall totals would be vastly different. So to continue to follow this closely, check in daily over the next couple of days. Rainfall is going to be the main threat with this, but it's certainly something we need to keep an eye on as we go through this week and maybe even into the upcoming weekend. But that does it for our Monday morning 10 a.m. tropical update. I'm meteorologist Peyton Malone. Thanks for joining me.